Hello, it is Sinix, and I'm back to do more face painting. So for this episode, we're going to tackle some darker skin tones. So I picked this face right here next to the other ones. Actually, I looked around at my sheet of faces, and there's really kind of a lack of good ethnicities. There are some that I would say were kind of inspired to be more Asian, but mostly they're very Caucasian, and it's kind of hard to do a dark skin tone. This was the closest one that seemed like I could get away with it, so balls to it. This person's gonna be more ethnic and have that darker skin tone. So I'm obviously working from dark to light this time, and I established my really kind of dark, much more reddish purplish hue. I'm going to be working a lot more to the left on the color wheel, more to the left, and kind of have those more reddish tones. And I really wanted to get some more bluer highlights, but I don't know. I don't think I really succeeded with that. And you could see me messing around with the hair, trying to see if I could bring in some more hues and whatnot. But for the actual piece, you can see I kind of established my lighting in one big swoop of flat color. Kind of that cell shaded style I talked about in the last one that makes painting very accessible, where you just kind of block in your base color, put on your cell shaded lighting, kind of establish what you want your lighting to be. For this one, it's kind of a basic top down, kind of slightly to the right, but basic top down lighting. And just kind of using your what you know, like cell shaded stuff, to kind of establish it, and you keep building up levels of that. So I'm working right here on building up that second level of that, just that second level of lighting to kind of make it more interesting. Um, so I've run into some problems with the whole ethnic skin tone thing that I was going for. I think the main problem I was having was I can't use all my tricks to establish a lot of different hue variations in the skin tone. It's a lot harder to do because you can't do like the bright red noses or anything. Because obviously when you got the darker pigment or the less lighting, you're not going to have that same sun damaged look or that drunker look or whatever you want to call it, those red noses. So for this one, since the lighting was on the right side, I decided to bring in a little bit of secondary lighting along the left side of the face, just so there's a little more interest to look at and it's not too plain. So you can see that along the left, there's a little bit of balance. I would say kind of a pinkish tone, pinkish lighting, just something reflective over there. And for that kind of stuff, that kind of reflective lighting, it might just be like light bouncing off a red wall or something. You might be able to get away with adding some of that secondary lighting. You just kind of make it more environmental. And I was trying to bring in some bluer highlights, like I mentioned. And obviously, for something where the skin tone is really reddish and whatnot, you're not going to jump all the way over on the color wheel to the blue hues, because that would just look extremely saturated and out of place. To make it bluer, you're just going to make it unsaturated, so it's actually gray. But gray, obviously, if you've done your basic art research, you would know that gray next to a warm tone looks bluish, and gray next to a blue tone, or I'm sorry, a cold tone looks warm. So you basically use that to kind of make it look bluish. But I didn't do a great job of that on this particular piece. It still looks not that bluish or anything. So I'm just kind of reworking the face stuff. This particular face wasn't really. Or I'm sorry, let me back to that in a second. I was kind of testing out right there. You can see the black and white to make sure my values were okay. And I think the values are okay. They'll work good for when you see them overall with the other faces that I'm gonna do and the ones to the bottom and stuff. Like the values, it's a very low contrast piece, but it works out well. And I adjusted the colors a little. I considered making it a lot brighter, like you might have seen flashes of, but overall I kept it pretty close. I decided to go with this low contrast and darker, just to kind of make it something interesting. Although I don't know how well it reads on video, but I was kind of like in a more comfort zone in terms of the contrast that I was going for here. So I'm sorry, I'm getting distracted by this little bird that's hopping around next to me because I'm babysitting my girlfriend's cockatiel. And it is a horrible, mean bully of a bird. This morning I woke up and was kind of drowsy. I looked over at the cage and it was standing on top of the cage staring at me. And as my eyes opened, it flew over, with its little flying sound. It landed on my arm, took a little poop, and then did a dance. I kid you not, it did a dance on my bed and then flew back to its cage. And I was just traumatized and scared. I didn't know what was going on. I was half asleep. There was poop on my arm. It was a very horrible experience. But anyway, what were we talking about? Oh yes, this little skin tone. So I'm working above the line art here, and yeah, I decided to kind of work above the line art a lot on this one, just because I didn't really have anything that interesting going for this piece. So I wanted to really make the nose and stuff, get rid of the line art, make it more painterly. Added some kind of hints at like some ears and the hair, and honestly, I kind of just blocked out everything that I had done with the hair over the line art. I decided to just kind of go back, just kind of block it black, block it back all out to black, and then rework the hair above the line art just to make it look more painterly. You can see here I'm kind of working the nose a lot, trying to make it look like so. The nose is more crinkled up without going too strong on that, but kind of showing the bottom of the nostrils a bit, kind of giving that, like she's kind of raising her nose a bit, more like giving off that expression. And so I'm showing the nostrils loop around and everything like that. And obviously it's tempting when you're making like face crinkled up stuff to kind of make like actual lines, but that look kind of weird on a girl. So I'm using my brush strokes to really kind of give hints of where the skin might be crinkled up or stuff. So there's a lot of kind of following the form with my brush strokes, and that helps a lot to make things look right. So I was working on the mouth and the neck. For the mouth, I don't think I mentioned, but for the teeth, teeth are kind of an interesting thing. Because when you start out, with painting or whatever, you might be thinking, okay, now I got to color the teeth. I'm going to pick a really white tone, and it'll look really awkward and, kind of out of place, and you'll be like, huh. So you have to learn to kind of stick with the colors you've already established on your skin tones. Maybe work with one of the more highlight colors and just bring that into the teeth. Obviously, the teeth are going to be in shadow because they're in the mouth, and they're not going to be brighter than what's going on with the rest of the face. They might be a little more white, so you're going to desaturate and whatnot. But yeah, you can also bring in a slightly more yellowy tone, and that usually, it sounds weird to say yellowy tone, but it doesn't look like yellow teeth. It looks like white teeth. So, it's just kind of those natural colors. So I'm working more and more above the line art. I got rid of the upper lip and brought in just a darker red tone instead of the black to make that more subtle. Got rid of the nose lines. I'm keeping some of the lines around the eyes just because I like the blackness there. Obviously, you can get away with more blackness like directly around the eyes and stuff, especially in this low light setting. That's probably the best place you can get away with doing some blackness, for whether it's kind of hinting at eyeliner or just the overall kind of crinkliness of the sunken eyes and whatnot. So here we go, just working on the hair a bit more. I'm starting to forget what I actually talked about or didn't talk about, but let me just go over some things, I guess, overall. So, ethnic skin tones, obviously you can't work in as many different hues, but personally I'm gonna go back because I'm like, this made me realize that I need to work on my ethnic skin tones a lot more, so I'm gonna go back and do a lot of photo references because that's the best way to learn some different tricks for dealing with ethnic skin tones and different kind of skin tones, different kind of tricks you can do to bring in hues is to do a lot of photo reference stuff. So here you can see the finished piece, and I'll mention a couple more things. I think if your problem it was working, getting enough contrast in your faces, you may want to try working from light to dark because that mentally makes it easier to add a lot more contrast. And if your problem is doing too much contrast in your faces, which I think is more common among people, then you might want to try working from dark to light because that mentally makes it more difficult to build up higher contrast. I think so anyway. So, I think that is it for this episode. I'm sorry I got a bit sidetracked. This bird over here is squeaking in the background, but thank you for watching, and I'll be back with another episode shortly.